All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this splendiferous podcast. Today, I've got on Zack Henderson. And I have to tell you, I'm a little bummed out because Zack and I just had the most amazing conversation that is now like tears in rain, to quote what's his face from Blade Runner. It's just like we didn't capture it on the magic of recording software. But we're not going to let you down. We're going to have an amazing conversation. In fact, one of the things we're going to be talking about is Zack, for the last couple of years, has been doing something very cool called Lift-A-Palooza, which definitely is an event that if you're in Nashville or not, actually, you should go to Nashville for it. Is going to be it's going to be amazing. I'm not going to tell you everything about it. I'm going to let him do it because I would do it no justice. It would be like a caveman trying to explain the big city. You'd be much better off getting a city slicker to explain it to you. So anyway, I'm going to let Zack get a word in edgewise momentarily here. I've been chattering endlessly. But one thing I do want to remind all my listeners, if you have not done it already, I want to give you a gift, a free one, completely free, no strings attached. It's my 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. As the name implies, it only takes 9 minutes to do. It involves kettlebells and bodyweight. And the moves are so simple, so straightforward, so foolproof. You can learn them in like 30 seconds because they're based around your gait pattern, meaning your walking pattern. So stuff like loaded carries, crawling, things like that make up the entirety really of the program. And it's designed to be done in conjunction with your regular training, not in place of it. So it's like putting a NOS booster in your car. I'm not a car guy, so I don't know if that's even an adequate analogy. Maybe Zack will enlighten me. But if you go to 9minutechallenge.com, you get your own free copy. So there you have it, 9minutechallenge.com. And with that said, Zack, welcome back.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. I'm very excited.
Yeah, man, me too. Well, two quick things before we even get into the topics of the day. Number one, I'm a big fan of all your material. So if anybody out there isn't already on Alex's newsletter and checking out his material and programs, by all means, you have to. You absolutely have to. You're an absolute whiz with all your programming stuff. So yeah, big thumbs up there. And two, I am definitely not a car guy. In fact, one of the reasons why I actually bought a Tesla a couple of years ago is because I am done with engines. I am done with gas stations. I am done with oil changes. I'm done with all that stuff, man. That's how big of a car guy I'm not. That
Yeah.
I'm really not even driving a car. It's like an iPhone with tires.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I drive an expensive European so-called luxury vehicle, and unfortunately, the greatest luxury that I've had is to take it to the shop countless times. Earlier this year, my power steering went out while I was driving. I was
no.
like, suddenly I was forced to drive a pirate ship. I was just like heave ho, like to go around corners and stuff. And thankfully, my dad and brother are very handy, and so they were. I was able to recruit them to fix it. But they were like, yeah, it took like 4 hours to fix, and it's like in any other car, it would have been, who knows, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. But it's just constructed in such a way that I think they try to encourage you to go waste money at one of their dealerships. So
Right.
yeah, so I'm with you. I'm not a big fan, and I don't know anything about Tesla other than that it's like well, very electric. And I would assume that if you have to take it to the dealer for anything, they basically get on a computer like in the spy movies. They're like, I'm in, and then they just click something and then it's fixed.
Pretty much, dude. It's like the only thing you have to do is just get like new tires, and if anything else goes wrong with it, they basically fix it over the cloud.
Oh, nice, dude. That's
Yeah, it's
amazing.
wild.
Dude, you want to hear a tire story? It'll blow your mind. It was it
Blow your
this?
tires?
No, I think it was late last year. I had to get some tires replaced because the tread was running low, and I had I think it was. I'm gonna give them some good and bad publicity. Discount tire. Took it there, and I had something where it's like I could, if I needed a tire replaced, like there was damage to it or something like that, that they would replace it, or I don't remember what the story was, but so I went in to go, to go. Oh, yes, it was because I picked up a flat. That's right, picked up a flat, And so then I took it there to get it fixed and all that jazz. So anyhow, I think at the same time, maybe I'm conflating stories, but in any case, one of the times that I was at Discount Tire pertaining to my tires, I had a call. My car was done, and evidently they had messaged me on my phone like 30 or 45 minutes prior, and I didn't see it. So when the call was over, I checked my message and I was like, "Oh, car's ready." So I went, paid, whatever, and then I went outside, and like my wheels were flat, like all of them, and I was like, I how did this happen? Like, did you pick up a flat like driving into the parking spot? And so what had happened evidently was that they just didn't put the valve cover on properly, so it just like and just slow. But if I hadn't known and I just left immediately, they would have been flat maybe before I had gotten home.
Yeah, and then you'd be driving on your rims, and that's a whole nother set of problems
For them, because I will tell you right now, I would not have paid a dime for that. So trust but verify, folks. I think doesn't matter, what level of professionalism people are or what level of skills people are supposed to have. Professionalism is a totally different story. So there you have it. There you be.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah. I have this old, I don't know. I hope it's not too cynical of a quote, but just by the law of averages, half of the people out there are bad at their jobs or below average, right? Just because of the way averages work. And so whenever I go out in public, oh gosh, I feel like such a, again, first world problems for saying this kind of stuff. But, whenever you go out there in the world, have the expectations that either the people who are going to be serving you your food or working on your car or whatever the case may be, they might be having a bad day. They might be in the 49% that are below average, at their job, and have proper expectations. I think that's I've heard that happiness is reality minus expectations. And always double check your service provider's work.
Yeah. I think the quote is from George Carlin. He said, "Think about how stupid the average person is, and then realize that half of them are even dumber," or something along those lines.
Love that. The average person.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but actually, I'm with you when it comes to service providers and stuff like that, because number one, the big thing is that even if they messed up, you're not really on equal ground, or at least not in America. In other countries, maybe you can yell at each other. Like in Israel, for example, it was not uncommon for service providers and customers to yell at each other, and nobody thought it was weird. It was just like, it's a very, like, everybody kind of looks at each other as family there. So, except one time I was at I think an internet service provider, maybe it was a cell phone store, and there was like almost a physical altercation that broke out. People had to be separated, meaning like the clerk and the customer, like people had to get involved to prevent them from just wailing on each other. But yeah, the other thing is that it's like, even if you're mad, number one, like the other person can't be mad back. So it's kind of like that person's got their hands tied behind their back and you can just tee off on them, and it's not cool. Like I had an internet problem, a lot of them actually, earlier this year. And so I went into my internet service provider, whom I'm not going to name because all publicity is good publicity and I don't want to give them any. And I told the manager, I asked for the manager and I said, "Listen, I'm not mad at you. Okay. But I'm going to say some things
right
about the service that I've gotten. And I have to tell you because you're the representative and you're the only person who can do anything about it. So I don't want you to think this is personal. It's not at all. I just have to explain what's happening." And then I did. And so he was able to help. But, it's like, it's not like he went out, hooked it up, screwed it up, took 8 smoke breaks, over a 4-hour period and then did a poor job. Like, there's no reason to yell at him. He's just the closest representative of the company. So I had to be clear and I had to be fair. And there you have it. And I think that's the way that you should do it, except for when it comes to food. Don't ever complain, because it doesn't matter. You send it back. There's like, I don't know what the chances are, but there's a good chance it might spit in your food. So
yeah, you know what? It's the risk you take just walking out your front door. It's you just never know,
Some days you're the pigeon,
and
some days you're the statue.
that's it, man. And on the other side of this whole kind of funny coin about complaining about the service and that whole thing is there's that old saying again that everyone who you see out and about in your life is fighting some battle that you have no idea about, that you could probably not even imagine. And it's funny, I was listening back to our first podcast where I was in the throes of my rehab for my my tib fib break.
Yeah.
And I was talking a little bit about the importance of meditation and having a gratitude practice, and how these things are even more important when you're, literally, laid up with some sort of injury. And another kind of interesting meditation type practice that I think is very, very powerful for people to engage in is to have, or to kind of meditate on what I might call like extreme empathy for people. Mm-hmm. Life is often not fair. It is often very, very hard for anyone out there, whether it's first world problems or third world problems. Unfortunately, human suffering is something that we all have to contend with as people. And just taking some time to, and I think this is also maybe covered in one of the Stoic books, or covered in Stoic philosophy, that every person that you interact with, just understand that if they haven't already experienced extreme tragedy in their lives, statistically, they probably will in the future. And I know that can be kind of like we're maybe kind of taking a left turn in this conversation, but it's one of these things I think is important to really think about. And not only is that going to help to give you a heart for people, it's also, I think it has this effect of centering you in the moment and actually allowing you to live your day with a more grateful heart and attitude. And to link it back to training and fitness, which is ostensibly what we're here to talk about, you think about that in a physical context, in a physical capacity context. Mm-hmm. Like, listen, the average American is not super duper healthy, is not super duper fit, and doesn't know what it's like to, let's say set a kettlebell press PR, or what it's like to unlock new levels of mobility or strength, or even cardiovascular endurance, or, have never felt that dopamine hit or that endorphin high of just, getting pumped up, in the gym or out on a run or on a hike. And when you really think about that, it's like, man, if I just have the luxury of dropping on the floor right here and knocking out 10 push-ups, and just having the physical capacity to A, do it, and B, enjoy it, man, that already just puts you ahead of so many people out there. And when you actually think about how true that is, you attack your training with more vigor, more excitement. In any case, I'm rambling a little bit, but these are some of the things that I think, translate both from just being as decent of a human being as you can, and then also how to be, an absolute monster in the gym, in your training, in your chosen performance. I think it all comes from the same fundamental heart and attitude and spirit of just being grateful for the opportunity to just do your thing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people seem to, well, particularly in the fitness world, they seem to have a misunderstanding about other people's connection with fitness. Actually, this isn't a great example because it was like a survey on YouTube or whatever, you can go through those like posts on YouTube, and somebody said like the question was, do your parents exercise? And I clicked yes, because my dad, exercises quite a bit. And I looked and it was like 24% or 26% yes, 74% no. And that's evidently not that uncommon, because I remember Charles Staley once said the same thing. He said, some people in my parents' generation exercise, but most of them didn't. He said, my parents just like never exercised, and here he is. He's like this, genius in the gym. And then we forget like the stuff that we take for granted in terms of like what we're able to do, or what we just take as like a base level. You're like, okay, today we're going to work on push-ups. And then let's say your trainee's like, I can't do any, or they try to do push-ups and it's like, the shrugging the shoulders and the arms are like way out to the side, and you're like, oh, let's just fix that technique. And then they can't do a single one. And then you're like, playbook, just fling it out the window, like you just really, those, by the way, make you a great trainer, because then you have to learn how to do things that you just completely took for granted. But on the topic of people suffering immensely, a lot of them don't even realize it. There are people, they're just used to being stressed or depressed or mistreated or underappreciated or whatever. And then the same thing is every bit as true for exercise. People are just used to thinking, oh, well, that's like a hobby that like those fit crazy people do, and I don't want to get hurt and all this other stuff. And all those are perfectly rational responses. It's like people don't know that you can do just very little. I mean, that's why I put together the 9-minute challenge, for instance, is because of course people could do 30 minutes, but like 9 is not even scary. So people do it and they're like, oh, it's done already and I feel great. So they're like encouraged to do more. And I don't think most of our colleagues think like that. I think they think like we think, which is 45 minutes, easy. That's a light day, whereas 45 minutes for a lot of other people is like, it's like, I need the next week off of work. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah. And I think that was kind of a big theme of what we were chatting about in the last podcast is how important it is to put yourself in the average person's shoes as a coach, and then how things like, injury kind of, force you into having that perspective.
What I think is important,
for better, for worse.
On that note too, this is one of the reasons, and I'm sure that you'll agree with me on this one, because that's what you're here for, so that we can agree on everything and never have a single disagreement. But this is one of
Agreed.
The reasons. Yeah, there we go. See, perfect. We're already off to a great start. Why I think that the obsession with certain, like, lionizing certain exercises above and beyond all others doesn't make a lot of sense, because if you've got somebody who's injured or simply can't, like, military presses are great, I love them, but like if somebody's got bad shoulders or their shoulder hurts, are you really going to tell them like, okay, I guess we could do push-ups instead? Like, it's not going to inspire them. You'd be like, right, great, this is going to be a perfect chance for you to work on your push-ups. Looks like those don't hurt your shoulders, and your military press is going to be way stronger by the time your shoulder's ready to go. If you can take that approach, where everything that's happened to them, like, this is great because now we get to work on that. We couldn't have done that otherwise because I was going to have you do this, but now we get to do that next. And instead, we're going to work on something else. That you can get people excited about doing stuff, as opposed to, most people have like a very one-dimensional playbook. Most trainers have a very one-dimensional playbook.
Of course. Yeah. There's a saying from Dan John. It's actually, I just put out this YouTube video, which I detail my top 3 coaching lessons, according to me, that I gleaned from Dan John. And on that list is, quote, "Don't make me look stupid."
Yeah. And
one of my founding philosophies in coaching is, as soon as a client walks through the door, they are winning. There's if you're in the room with me, there is no losing. As soon as you walk in, you're winning for being here. You're winning for, doing the warm up, for every little thing. There is no failure. There's only pivoting and proper progressions and pregressions. And yeah, I mean, again, speaking of, being empathetic and obviously speaking of Dan John, he said that he's got a 60-pound weight vest that he will, let's say, encourage young personal trainers to wear this weight vest and quote do their BS workouts with this weight vest on, and then understand that is what your client probably feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Extra weight, uncoordinated, what is going on? So the next time you think, hey, 100 burpees and 1,000 box jumps is the move, well, that may be your masochistic idea of a good time. But again, the average person in on the street is already maybe contending with this feeling or frustration of failure.
Yeah.
And you don't want to compound that. You want to start an upward spiral of winning, of just showing up. And, it's just like, hey, how do you train a dog? You do it with positive reinforcement. You do it with the treat. You don't do it with the stick. You do it with the treat. And us humans, listen, we're not too far removed from the animal kingdom here. And being rewarded with a carrot as opposed to being punished with a stick is probably, for the vast majority of us out there, is going to need to be your thought process and your plan of action when it comes to training people. And a lot of that just comes down to being very, very conservative and using some common sense when it comes to exercise selection and the vibe that you bring to the session.
Yeah. The other thing is that people don't often think that, they're here. Okay, first and foremost, they're already taking a chance by seeing you in most cases, because oftentimes they're motivated by some sort of, like, let's say, a sad realization, or sad event. Like Dan John has talked about this, since mentioned him. He said, a lot of times really great clientele would be like recently divorced women, but they've had to go through something tragic, and so now they've got like this next level kind of motivation to get back into better shape and stuff like that. Similarly, people who maybe they realize, like, gosh, I couldn't even get on the ground to play with my kid. I was wheezing, my back hurt. I thought I blew my knee out. I was, et cetera, et cetera. So like they're going in hoping that they're going to get something good out of it. Like they're taking a chance. And so you got to put wins on the board for them. That is in my opinion, like what you said, if they're in there to train with you, they're already winning. So you got to make them feel like it. It can't be just a given. Like, oh, you showed up. That's important. Like, why is it important? How can they feel like it's important? Like, do you put a check mark on a board that they can see, and they're like, I want to see as many green check marks on that board as I can? Is there something visual? Is there some sort of like a feeling they get? Like, I used to give people high fives when we were done with the training session, like double high five and stuff like that. And you want them to leave with a good feeling. And you don't, and like, I like what Dan says, because his 3 rules are results, community, and don't make me look stupid, as I recall.
Man, you are on it. Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah. And he said, and by the way, you can get rid of the results and still have community and don't make me look stupid and still make good money in training.
Right. And to be fair, not a small number of people do.
Exactly. I like to think that, gentlemen like you and me are good at all 3 of those things. But yeah, even if you don't have the results, if people feel good and they're enjoying themselves, it's like, I've heard about this recently, that like people used to have a third space. There was like home, there was work, and then there's a third space. So maybe it was like, whatever. Like nowadays it might be like a gym, but it also could have been like coffee shop or the pub or whatever, where people would have these raucous conversations. I remember once when I was in Prague, I didn't understand what was going on, but there was somebody doing this at a pub, and they were like, there was like a speaking, gig, and the person was talking. I think he was a doctor of something, some sort of like academic subject, and he was there talking to all these people who wanted to listen, and so it was like, it turned it into a community. So that was like their third place, and so they were there, obviously spending money buying this tea. I think it was a tea shop or something like that. Yeah, it's super important. And if you train online, I think if you have some semblance of community with other people, like I have the Hebrew Hammers Hidden Hideaway, my Facebook group, and it's for that purpose. Because I know, I'm sure it's the same with you. If you have, because you have a lot of online people, it's like many of them could probably tell you, like, man, my family doesn't care about fitness. My friends, they're kind of lazy. They don't, it's like they need to be around people who are like them.
Right. Right. Well, and in a fun way of kind of segueing the conversation, maybe to answer your first question and to tie in the importance of community and referencing Dan John,
Like
what
where
is
this is going.
Lift-A-Palooza? Yes. What is Lift-A-Palooza? Well, Lift-A-Palooza is an event that I started hosting back in 2017, actually. And it started as just an excuse to bring together a lot of local strength coaches from the Nashville area to basically put on like a 1-day seminar where everybody had like their own like specialty to kind of present on. And then when the next year rolled around, I thought, well, it would be pretty cool if we could swing it to make it into 2 days and have one day that was like local coaches and one day that was like guest coaches to come in. And we did. And so we've been doing that almost every year. Obviously, a certain pandemic put a little bit of monkey wrench into our calendars, but we are back at it. And so last year we had Dan John come out to headline, and this year, coming up at the end of January 2024, I am so stoked that we're going to have Dan John headlining on Saturday and Jordan Syatt headlining on Sunday. So we've really got, as far as what I'm concerned, we've got like 2 generations of like all-time coaches and writers and content creators and influencers in the very best and truest sense. So I couldn't be more stoked to have those guys come out. So yeah, long story short, Lift-A-Palooza is just an excuse for us training nerds to get together in person in the same room.
I like it a lot, and I like to see the growth of it too, where it started off as just kind of like a local thing. You get the locals coming, and then you build up some momentum, and now you've got 2 internationally known coaches who are going to be teaching. And I'm curious what the topics are going to be. Have they already picked them out? Can you give us a sneak preview?
I can give you a sneak preview. So on and I'll kind of give you the full spiel. On Friday is going to be kind of like a meet and greet day at a friend of mine's gym, Vanessa Edwards' gym here in Nashville. So it's going to be like an open gym and sauna cold plunge and barbecue. So we might have some special guests doing some feats of strength, maybe some little impromptu Q&As and maybe some quote unquote seminar material there. But that's just going to be like a party to get your workout in, get some lifts in, meet everybody, and have some good old fashioned Tennessee barbecue. So
I was going to ask.
Yes. So that's going to be the super casual, fun gym pre-party on Friday. And again, that's all thanks to Vanessa Edwards and her husband for hosting. And Vanessa's actually she's an SFG kettlebell instructor. She's been a strength coach in Nashville for many, many years, and she was actually one of the first trainers that I met when I moved out here. And so her and I have we've hosted TSCs together. We've done a lot of training together, and to see her success kind of take off over the years has been really inspiring for me. So if you guys aren't familiar with her, she kind of keeps a low profile on social media, but she's awesome. So we're going to hang out at her place on Friday, and then on Saturday we've got Dan John. So Dan John is taking up the whole day, and it's going to be basically what we're calling like a deep dive on the art of training. So as you can imagine, from a guy like Dan John, he's going to cover everything from assessments. So we've already referenced some material from Can You Go? So if you guys aren't familiar with that book, it's required reading. So everything from assessments to goal setting. And as we know with Dan, it's not only about goal setting, but goal achievement. Some tension techniques, maybe some kettlebell basics, and obviously a Q&A. And we might be knock on wood, setting up a live podcast situation that I think is going to be really fun, really special. Obviously, a group dinner out on Saturday night. And then Sunday is Jordan Syatt. So specifically, he'll be leading a morning session on the deadlift. So for those who don't know, before he was a huge name on the internet, Jordan Syatt was a champion powerlifter. And that's actually how I started following him, way back in the day. He put his time in at Westside with Louis. So he really walks the talk, especially when you consider that he has a 4 times body weight deadlift. So he knows a thing or two about pulling heavy weight off the ground. So he has a deadlift presentation that we're going to be doing in the morning, and then his afternoon session is going to be all about social media, content creation, and for those who are interested, how he built an online coaching business, kind of on the back end of growing and nurturing not just a huge audience, because here's another thing that I know of from following him for so long, and B, I was a mentee of his for a number of years, and he had a fully built out, wildly successful online coaching business before he quote unquote blew up on Instagram. And I think that's something very important for any online or aspiring online coach to understand. It's not about the size of your audience. It's truly about how engaged they are, and as cheesy it is to say, the relationship that you build with people. And it's obviously a little bit trickier to do that online and at scale rather than being in the same room with people. But anybody who's followed, Jordan's content, how powerful and how adept he is at creating a connection with now hundreds of thousands of people on his social media. So that was actually his idea. I said, the floor is yours. We're giving you the whole day, whatever you want to talk about. And I'm really glad that he brought up and that he broached the topic of, there's some myths to bust, and there's also maybe some common sense principles to remind people of, in addition to tactics and strategies that really anybody can use to help people on the internet. Which even if you're just like an in-person coach and you really don't want to do the whole online thing, it's not just about the internet and quote unquote creating content. It still goes back to this fundamental principle of, how do you connect with people? How do you communicate with people? How do you truly help them and speak to them with where they're at? And those are skills that are applicable, like, no matter who you are. And I think Jordan has just done an absolute world-class job at doing that through all of his content. So that's Lift-A-Palooza 2024 in a nutshell.
It's going to be great. And, I think what's going to be really cool about Jordan's presentation is that he's definitely been there, done that, and he understands the intricacies of it, because you and I both know, like, there are a lot of influencers out there. I hesitate to even call him an influencer, because I see it as like such a disingenuous title. It's kind of like, theoretically it should be a great thing. It's like you're influencing people. It's like thought leader was what people were saying. I don't know, like before influencer was a thing. It was like right kind of on the cusp of it. And it's like, what are they really leading you to think, or are they just telling you what to think? It's like a complete misnomer of a term. But if we're gonna call him an influencer, he's definitely one of the best ones out there for anything. And I think part of it is because he stays on message. He speaks to the people who reach out to him, and Lord only knows there are tons of them, and he genuinely lives it. And beyond that too, he's like, it wasn't an accident how he became well known. It's because of the relationship that he fostered with so many people. And I think in particular, if you're in a business, which is, people don't like this term. I like it because I think it works, even though it's kind of like a negative term. Self-aggrandizement, which is basically, I mean, that's what my business is. It's all about me, my approach, my methods, or ones that I think are complementary. And, I might introduce people to those. You need to be able to build that relationship, because unless you're like Kim Kardashian and you just expect to be like a celebrity that, people like admire from afar and just can't, connect with, you're just not going to have any success. And if your goal is to help people, then you need to be able to do the stuff that actually helps them. The celebrity thing is completely secondary. And I think a lot of people miss that, but Jordan's excellent at it. And he's very humorous too, which is super helpful,
Yeah. I'm super stoked that I landed both of these guys to come out. I couldn't be happier. So so for those who are curious, Lift-A-Palooza is happening the last weekend in January, the 26th through the 28th here in Nashville. And for anybody who's curious, I'm sure there will be, if you follow me, I'm promoting it every single day, but it's just on my website, zackhenderson.com, and you will definitely see links to sign up and to learn more if anybody out there is interested.
That's great. And you're lucky too that you have a name that's easy to spell and remember, because for me, that's why I don't tell people to go to alexsulkin.com, because it's like, how do you spell it? What was his last name? So on and so forth. Incidentally, I bought most of like the variations of my name so that I redirect them to the site. But if people don't even remember that, it's no good. But Zack Henderson, people remember that. It's easy.
Yeah, ZACK. The only thing I have to contend with is forget about the H.
Yes. Have you bought ZachHenderson.com?
I tried.
Really? And somebody else bought it?
Well, it was taken way back in the day when I was first looking for a domain, which at this point is probably well over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was just lucky that Zack Henderson was available, so I snatched it up. But ZACH, I believe that Zach is a photographer, I think, and he does not want to let go of that domain. So I can't blame him.
Don't blame him either.
Yeah.
I guess in that regard, I'm lucky with my name, because it's completely abnormal in a certain
unique
sense. Yes, it is. Just think, man, if we had known, like, go back to 1997, you tell 11-year-old Zach or Alex, hey, scrape together the money in your piggy bank and go buy these domains. And it was like big name, Joe Smith, Bob Jones, whatever. And then like just buy as many of them as you can, squat on them until like, college, and then sell them. And you just paid your way through college.
Man.
If only.
Timing is everything, right?
I know it is. But who could have known? Somebody could have known, because somebody did all that stuff. I heard a funny story. There was some guy, I don't know, he bought some like totally random like website name, and anyway, it ended up in huge demand, and he got like $1 million for it. It's just because he's just been squatting on it for however long, and he just waited until the price got to such a point where he's like, okay, now I'll sell, and so he did.
Yeah, man, it's wild. There's so many little kind of goofy examples of, honestly, if I had bought, a crummy old house here in East Nashville 20 years ago, man, I'd be getting millions for that. Yeah. Or, if you bought a few Bitcoins 15 years ago, oh man. So listen, sometimes it's the luck of the draw. Sometimes if you have the insider knowledge to be able to see, what's going to be valuable in the future, well, then for sure, good for you. But for the other 99% of us, you do the basics. You diversify. You try to live, below your means, and again, always trying to think like, how does any of this kind of relate back to training? Certainly, there could be, a super specific, super special little tweak variation on a little exercise that might be the unlock for you.
Yeah.
But chances are you're going to have to do squat, hinge, push, pull, loaded carry, just like the rest of us, for the rest of your life. And your your movement portfolio must be diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing, like with over specialization, if again, hey, this is not financial advice, but if your entire nest egg is in one type of market, so to speak, technology, healthcare, energy, oil, who knows what, and that tanks, well, that could be enough to really be life threatening in a certain kind of way. But if you're diversified, yeah, you may not get the wild outsized, gains when, these things happen. You're also not going to subject yourself to the crashes of a particular market. But if you can be well diversified in your portfolio and your quote unquote portfolio of movements, that's going to be the best thing almost no matter who you are. And then when you're exposed to all these different things, maybe you do find that exercise. Maybe you do find that type of exercise that suddenly really speaks to you and is a big unlock.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's in a roundabout way the attitude that I've tried to take with my own training is I've tried. I'm not going to say I've tried everything. I've done my best to try everything from Pilates and yoga and Zumba and cycle class and Peloton and powerlifting and CrossFit and kettlebells and jujitsu and Alex Salkin's 9minutechallenge.com and everything in between. And, and hey, for that matter, running, that's one of the wild things that I was thinking of going back and listening to our conversation is that I don't think maybe I was walking from after my leg break, but I definitely wasn't running.
Mm-hmm.
And this past year I did my first half marathon.
Wow.
And, to me, that was like, okay, that was like a big, quite literally, it was a PR, a distance PR.
Sure.
And so it's like, you can't, I always subscribe to don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah.
Maybe something's not for you, but I don't really think you have an opinion on something until you have that actual feel for it, until you've actually tried it. And you never know what you might like.
True.
Right?
Yeah. The thing is that my rule is that you can dismiss it if you want, but then don't say that it sucks. You just don't know. You like, look, I don't care to do it. Like, I don't want to try it. Okay, fine. But then you can't, like, I don't think that you should stop other people from doing it. Like, right. We like to joke about Pilates and, stuff like that. But I would rather somebody go do Pilates and not lift than just sit on their couch. So like, yeah, I have no interest in trying Pilates. But if someone says, I think I want to try Pilates, what do you think? I'll be like, I think you should give it a shot. I've never tried it. I couldn't tell you. But if you like it, then maybe you won't like it. But if you do, that'll be like your thing. And you'd be missing out if you didn't try it. So the only thing I try to steer people away from is like CrossFit, because I tell them, look, if you have a good coach, you'll be fine, because they're not going to have you do CrossFit. They're just going to use the name and the brand, and they're going to like make you do CrossFit type movements or the kind of things that you would see in CrossFit, but not till you get jacked up. But, I've known people who are like, yeah, I did a CrossFit class and scraped up my shin, missing a box on a box jump on the 30th box jump that they had to do. So it's like, you're lucky that it wasn't the opposite side, the Achilles tendon. But otherwise, well, I mean, I probably don't need to give you more horror stories about lower leg injuries. You've had enough of those in your day. But
man, yeah.
But I'm with you. And I think that the idea of diversifying your fitness is also huge. I really try to harp on people about this. If you're the kind who can specialize, you will figure it out, because you will be so preternaturally good at something to begin with that maybe it'll be worth the risk. Like Andy Bolton, the first time he deadlifted, allegedly he deadlifted double body weight. It just doesn't happen to other people. Maybe that had something to do with the fact that he became a record-breaking deadlifter. Mike Tyson was beating up adults when he was 12 years old. Like, he was made to box. So it's cool if he specializes, because it only makes sense. Everybody else, you're going to have to solve your problems like the rest of us, which is to say, do a lot of things, get reasonably good at them, and then If you're in the fitness industry, solve other people's problems. It's going to be a niche that you can help, and you'd be doing them a huge disservice if you didn't do it. So,
yeah,
you got to man up.
Yeah, man.
Help all these people.
Yeah, that's it. And, honestly, some of my best clients are gals who started in Pilates and yoga. And I was even working with a lady today. Man, we've been working together for years at this point. She was a yoga instructor for years and years and years. I think she's in her late 60s now. And there was a little bit of having to sell her on, some of the stuff that we do. But it's so interesting that, like, because she's already in this mode of basically being a student of the human body, when I say, hey, do this thing, she's like, oh, it's just like this other thing that I've been doing for years in yoga, but with a twist, with
twist.
It's funny. She will say that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, exactly. But yeah, it is funny. And then, so many of our clients, they get started in Planet Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know. Whatever sparks someone's interest, you've got to you've got to encourage that spark, and then just trust that person will have the self-efficacy to continue to make decisions in their own best interest for their goals, for their body. And usually sooner or later they end up in our kind of neck of the training woods.
Exactly.
So
yeah, you gotta give them space to do things, I won't say wrong, but do things differently before they decide to do them your way. If you sound dismissive, or you're like, basically make it seem like, because if people are talking to you about something they're interested in, like, they want to share that with you. And if you basically bat it away like a cat knocking, water glass off the counter, they're not going to want to put that water glass in the counter anymore. And, they may not even feel like, maybe what I'm doing is lame. Maybe I shouldn't tell other people about it. And then it's just a bad cascade of events from there. So I agree with you. You got to encourage people. And like I said, even if there are things that I find completely boring, if other people totally dig it, I'm happy for them, and I want them to keep doing it, because the alternative, sedentary living and chronic disease and being lame, and I don't want to wish that on anybody. So, but what I do want to wish on everybody is a happy Lift-A-Palooza, which was coming up on what dates? Remind us.
January 26th through 28th, 2024.
You heard it here first, folks. Or maybe not first, but you heard it here, which is important. Go to ZackHenderson.com, not with an H, with a K. Please do yourself a favor. I'm sure that he's a very good photographer. We've already given a bunch of publicity, so, if you need him, fine. But Zack Henderson is going to make you look good in pictures. Zack Henderson with the H, maybe he'll make your pictures look good. It's up to you to look good. Zack Henderson will help you. ZACK Henderson, everyone knows how that is spelled, .com. Zack, thank you for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, man. This is too much fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I look forward to hopefully seeing you very soon in Nashville.
Yes, sir. We'll plan on it.
Most definitely. All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, have fun and happy training.